In this video, I will explain how to connect FastAPI with MySQL. Now, let's see what actually happens internally when FastAPI receives a HTTP request. Assume this client wants to check her bank balance from SBI. So she can check it from YONO app or from any browser. This browser or app will generate a HTTP GET request because this is a retrieval operation. And FastAPI will receive the request and create a database session. This session will continue until response is sent to the client. Then FastAPI runs the request logic. This request logic is for retrieving the data from database. So this data can be retrieved successfully. Then the result would be the bank balance. If any error occurred or any exception occurred, then this exception will be returned as result, like server error or server busy. Then this result or response will be sent to the client, HTTP response. After that, FastAPI will close the session. Now let's understand the file structure. Here we will use three files: main.py, mysql.py and model.py. In main.py, the API routes and application logics are defined here. The HTTP request like get, post, put, delete, all are defined here. Here we also create the tables. Then in mysql.py, here the database connection and session logics are defined. Okay, here are the concept of engine, which will connect the Python with MySQL. Then in model.py file, it is used to define table structure, like what will be the table name, then how many columns will be there, what are the columns name and what are their types, etc. Now let's understand the mysql.py file. First of all, we will import the necessary modules, that is SQLAlchemy core and SQLAlchemy ORM. Then we will create database URL. This is the full URL that tells where my database is and how to connect. Now we will create engine. This engine will connect the Python with MySQL. Then we will create session factory object. Every database operation will be performed within these sessions. Then we will declare this base class. This base class is the parent class for each tables or models. Every model we create will be inherit from this base class. Then we will create a function to provide the temporary session. This function getDatabase will provide temporary database session for each request. This session is opened, then used, then safely closed. Now let's understand the model.py file. First of all, we will import the necessary modules. We import the base class from mysql.py file, which acts as the parent for tables. We also import SQLAlchemy to define table columns and data types of the columns. Then we define the model class. Then we define the table name, the name of the table. Then we define the attribute, the name of the attribute and their types. Now let's understand this main.py file. First of all, we will import the necessary modules. That is, of course, the FastAPI, then SQLAlchemy, then this model from model.py file, then this base, engine, and session from MySQL.py file. Then we create FastAPI instance, basically the object. Then we create the database tables with the help of metadata. Then we define the endpoints. Those are this get, post, put, or delete. Then we perform the request handling operation. First of all, we will create database session with the help of depends and the get database function, which will provide the session. Then request logic run means we are fetching the data, or we are retrieving the data, or we are updating the data, or we are deleting the data, anything. Then we return the result, whether it is successful or any exception. Now let's summarize those diagrams. First, MySQL.py. First of all, we will import the necessary modules. Then we define the database URL. This URL tells where the database is and how to connect. Then we create engine. This engine connects Python with the database. Then we make session factory. All database orgs happens inside a session. Then we declare base class. This is the parent of the all database tables or models. Then we provide session with the help of getDatabase function. This function gives on database session for each request. This session is opened, used, and then closed. Now let's see this model.py. First of all, we will import the necessary modules. Then we will define the model. On model class means on database table. Then we will define the table, means set table name. Then we will define the attributes, means the column names and their types. Now let's come this main.py file. First of all, we will import the necessary modules, then create the FastAPI instance, means the app. Then we will create the database tables with the help of metadata. Then we will define the endpoints with the help of get, post, put, and delete requests. Then we will perform request handling. In the request handling, we will create the database session first with the help of depends and get database function. Then request logic run means the updation or deletion or retrieval, those operations are performed here. After that, return the result. Now let's do some practical. Now this is my file structure, main.py, and inside this MySQL folder we create two files. One is model.py and another is MySQL.py. And on extra file requirements.txt. The requirements.txt file is required for installing the required libraries. Here we require full library FastAPI to run this API, and the UbiCon is the server to run the FastAPI, and SQLAlchemy to interact the Python with various relational database. We use this library, and the PyMySQL is to connect Python with SQL. I have already written some piece of code that is this main.py just to run the FastAPI. Okay, so this is my FastAPI. I am running this in localhost 8000 port. Try execute homepage of the project. That is my URL, localhost slash 8000. That is my URL, home URL, and that is my mysql.py file import module. Then create database URL, then create the engine, then make session factory, then declare base class, then provide session. Then model.py file, import modules, define model, define table, then define attributes. And in main.py there are also import modules, then create FastAPI instance. I already did it. Then create database tables or model. I have to do this. Then define endpoints. I also have to do this because that is a basic endpoint not related to MySQL. And then request handling. Now let's start our code from mysql.py. I have to import the create engine from SQLAlchemy. Then I have to import the session and base. I have to import this from SQLAlchemy.orm object relational mapper. Now I have to create the database URL. The database URL looks like this. Now I have to define my username. My username is root. That username is from my MySQL. Password is also root in my case. Host, I am hosting this from localhost. Port, the default port of the MySQL database is 3306. DB name, let me just create my database first. That is my localhost, and 3306 is my port, and my password is root. Okay, let me create a new database. Yes, this is my database name, Shion. Okay, so I have to create this URL first. That is my string, and I will use f string for this uh, username, password, host, port, database name. Yes, that is my database URL. Now I have to create the engine. Create engine with the database URL. That is my engine. Now I have to make session factory, session maker. Bind, I have to use this bind. I have to bind this with the engine, then auto flush. Just keep this false. Now I have to declare the base. That is my base. For providing session, I have to write the getDatabase function. Inside this function, I have to write the session variable. So let me just hold this session maker value into a variable. Well, session local session. Just hold this into a variable. Now, whenever this function is called, it will return the session, local session. After that, finally, the session will be closed. Now, let's go to the model.py file. Here, first I have to import the record modules. What are they? They are the base. That base is the uh, parent class or model class. Then I have to import SQLAlchemy for the column. Then the type of is column, integer, string. So let me code. Then I have to define the model class. My class name is user. The class, the model name should be same as the table name. Okay, user. it inherit the base class. Then I have to create the table name. Define the table. I have to define the table. Table name is my user. Then I have to define the attributes. Assume first column is ID. The value of this column is integer. Then the column is my primary key. Then my other column name is name. The type of this column is string. This should not be null. Let's keep this to column for now. Now let's go to the main.py file. The first API already imported. Then from mysql.sql import base. Base is required for creating the database tables. Base dot metadata dot create all. I have to bind here again. Bind equals to engine. For this I have to import engine. Then from mysql.model import user. That is my model class. So now comes to this define endpoint and request handling part. I have created this SQL endpoint. Whenever user write this localhost /SQL, it will hit this endpoint. Now I have to just have to pass this variable. The type of this variable is session. This session I have to write here this depends. This session depends from here. I have to write get database. Get database. Where is my session? Okay, from SQLAlchemy dot URL import session. I think this should create my table. Okay, there is a problem in this user column name. Worker request require length. Okay, string of 100. Now it should work. Yes, it should work. It works. Try execute database table created successfully. Let me check whether it created or not. Tables user, yes, the table has been created, ID and name.